Thank you, Dale. On behalf of Davies Ward, Phillips and Weinberg, it's my pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker of this session. Governor Rick Snyder grew up in Battle Creek, Michigan, and holds 3 degrees from the University of Michigan. Following a successful career with the then called Coopers & Lybrand, Governor Snyder joined personal computer company Gateway, where he was named president and CEO, and ultimately guided Gateway to a Fortune 500 company status with more than 10,000 employees. Governor Snyder returned to Michigan in 1997 to co-found the Ann Arbor-based venture capital fund Ardesta, whose mission is to be a source of capital to innovators and entrepreneurs and to turn budding ideas into exciting new Michigan companies. Getting Michigan's economy moving again is the governor's pledge. His goal is to diversify Michigan's economy to attract global companies while providing a positive climate for existing companies and entrepreneurs to thrive. In 1999, Governor Snyder was named the first chair of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, where he helped lead the MEDC to become one of the nation's most respected public-private economic development programs. In Washtenaw County, Governor Snyder also provided the leadership behind the nationally recognized local economic development firm Ann Arbor Spark. A political newcomer and self-proclaimed reformer with the moniker One Tough Nerd, the governor has pledged a common-sense approach to efficient and effective government, applying business management principles for creating jobs and reinventing the economy, reestablishing Michigan's innovative spirit, and restoring the state's reputation as a place where families and individuals enjoy a high quality of life. I note they also enjoy a winning hockey team, which we don't hear. Rick Snyder and Sue Kerr Snyder were married in 1987 and are the proud parents of Jeff, Melissa, and Kelsey. So I ask you all to please join me in welcoming Governor Rick Snyder.
Well, thank you for that very kind introduction. It's great to be with you today. I want to thank the Canadian Council on Public-Private Partnerships for this great opportunity, this invitation to talk. And to show I got in the spirit of things, it was great to be here last night for the football game. And today, I had to make my choice this morning. And if you can see, I had a red tie and a blue tie. I have the blue tie on in honor of the Argonauts and their victory last night. One thing that became clear after watching American football for so many years is I certainly would never want to be a cornerback in the Canadian Football League. It's way too much work running that big field. No, but it's wonderful to be with you. And there are several things I hope to accomplish today in terms of talking about Michigan. And one of the key things most people expect me to talk about, and I will, is the bridge. A huge project that we are working on, a great opportunity. But there are a couple other important things that I view as part of my mission today. One is to also learn about P3s. You're far more advanced in this country than we are. I view this as an educational opportunity. And I had some good discussions earlier today to say, how can we do more in America, and particularly Michigan, to really leverage public-private partnerships? We can do a better job. And so I view that as a great opportunity. The second one, in terms of other goals, is to say thank you to Canada, to continue to build a great relationship with your wonderful country, because it truly is a partnership. When I was running for governor, my focus was on reinventing Michigan, because fixing Michigan was not good enough. We were in enough trouble where fixes weren't adequate. It was about reinvention. And there were 2 guiding points that I looked at the world to recognize, to say these are things you have to be cognizant of if you want to be successful. One of those is the world's going to continue to globalize. We're going to be more and more a global economy. And the second one is the velocity of change in this world is only going to continue to increase. Things are going to go faster. And so if you look at it and you want to be successful in a global world, what do you need? Well, it's interesting. It's not about doing transactions with people. The key to success in a global world that's going to go faster and faster is having the best relationships with people. People are critically important. I'm a techie by background. But people are the most important asset. And when you look at it, we need to build the best people relationships we can. And if you're Michigan, who should be your best partner? It's Ontario and the country of Canada. It's a relationship that we're neighbors. And it's a relationship in the Michigan context I don't think we've done the best job at. We can build better ties and relationships and recognize the best partners, the best people to have relationships are not the people far across the globe, it's the people right next door that too often you take for granted. And so one of the things is to really reaffirm is we are committed to building stronger ties with Canada. And so today we opened a virtual office to say we're going to do more economic development in Canada in terms of both imports and exports and investment. And we brought a number of companies with us to start that process. They're doing meetings here today in Toronto. They'll be doing meetings in Montreal later this week. So we're focused on building that relationship. So I look forward to a longer-term relationship that's already strong but only getting stronger. Now for the bridge. And I use the term the bridge because it's had different names. It actually was the Detroit International River Crossing. That didn't work so hot, so we tried remarketing it as the new International Trade Crossing, and it's been more successful. But it is a critically important project. And why is a bridge so important? Well, first of all, I can tell you, when I was running for governor, I took no public position on the bridge. Literally, during the course of the campaign, I wouldn't answer the question on the bridge because I was ignorant of the facts. I hadn't done my homework yet. And I am a nerd. I am a proud nerd. I'm a CPA also by training. So as soon as I was elected governor, I decided I got to dig into this bridge to see whether it's a good thing or not. It's an outstanding opportunity. It's a win for all. And it's something that really needs to get done. And in terms of looking at what drove me to say it's such a great opportunity, because the bridge is not about simply a physical structure. It's a huge, critically important infrastructure project in terms of being a physical facility. But to me, it was much more important because one of the things I ran on was more and better jobs for the citizens of Michigan. And if you look at it, about 5% of Michigan jobs are related to trade with Canada. 5%. That's a huge number. And we're constrained. One of the great assets we have in the world that we're all proud of as Canadians or Americans are the Great Lakes. If you ask a Michigander, what's the most important asset in the state of Michigan, it's actually our people, but many people will say it's the Great Lakes. It's a wonderful thing, but it's not great for trade. And the issue is we need more crossings to create more trade jobs. So I really viewed it as an opportunity to create tens of thousands of more jobs for Michiganders. And the way I view it, if you do trade right, for every job you're creating in Michigan, hopefully there's another job being created in Canada. So it was all about jobs, long-term jobs. The second point is it is a huge project, and we still are going through tough economic times in North America. And this would be tens of thousands of construction jobs for multiple years, and that will be a wonderful thing. In addition to that, though, is basic security in terms of economic security. Right now, we rely too much on the Ambassador Bridge. One crossing is a huge amount of the Michigan economy. It's a huge percentage of the Ontario economy in terms of trade. We need more spans. We need redundancy. We need opportunity for long-term growth there. So from an economic security and national security perspective for both countries, it's important we have this other crossing. Now, we are actually able to get a couple other benefits to this wonderful project, and again, this is thanks to the country of Canada. They recognized our tough economic times, and so your country has been so generous in offering to essentially pay for the cost for this project and then be repaid by tolls. And I don't say that lightly, so for each one of you, each one of the citizens of Canada, I personally want to tell you on behalf of the citizens of Michigan, thank you. I appreciate how generous an offer it is, and how important it is, and how meaningful. And so every time I talk to Michigan citizens, I also thank the country of Canada for your support, because I believe it will be a great project for your country and for ours, and you will get paid back, and we will succeed together. So it's just a wonderful opportunity in terms of doing all those things. But it comes back to saying, in terms of creating this long-term environment, what a great opportunity we have by going back to that first point I made about relationship building, and then saying building infrastructure to connect us more. Because one part is what I find in Michigan, and I think it's also true in parts of Canada, is we tend to be too humble. We tend not to brag about what a great partnership and economic opportunity we have. And one of the things I would share with Michiganders when I was going across the state talking about the bridge, because we had a lot to clear up. Talk about misinformation. When we were seeing the ads in favor of Proposal 6, which was the counter proposal to what we wanted to do, is I would say the only accurate facts are there's a bridge and there's the state of Michigan. Nothing else was true in the ads. But I would try to remind Michiganders that draw a circle, and draw that circle from Montreal to Chicago. And that area accounts for 1/3 of the North American economy. And I wonder how many of us, even in this room, have ever bragged to people, did you know 1/3 of the North American economy was Montreal to Chicago? It is. And one of the things we can do is make it as easy as possible to make commerce go back and forth. And there's where this bridge plays a critical intersection in that. The ability to go across to connect highway to highway with no traffic lights going through Windsor, what a great opportunity. And what I would tell each one of you, and because we have a number of people interested in this project, I encourage you to bid, to get fired up about this project. So my commercial today is, hey guys, we got a multi-billion-dollar project. Why don't you go for it? And let's get going. I am proud to say, though, we built a structure in partnership with Canada. We put in place an agreement that will make it work well for the private sector to get involved. And what I can tell you is there are 2 or 3 steps I'm happy to mention is, right now we're going through the presidential permit process. That's on a positive path. We're getting a waiver from Buy America. That's on a positive path. We have an issue with a Coast Guard permit from the U.S. side, and that will be on a positive path. So we're changing what were red lights for far too long, for far too many years, to all green lights. And then we actually build an agreement that really is focused on good commerce, not politics. Good policy and good results, not politics. So we will create an international authority. I get to appoint 3 people for that, and I can guarantee you, they will not be politicians. They will be astute business people that will make wise economic decisions. And I'm confident Canada will be doing the same thing. And we will go through that process of asking for qualifications, for proposals, and then doing an agreement that will be good commerce. Because again, the way I view it is a public-private partnership is wins for all. And that's the opportunity we have here. So I will continue to do my job with probably a little less stress than having millions of dollars of ad runs against me all the time. Actually, the nice part about the proposal coming along, and those of you that got stuck with Detroit Cable Channel on your cable network, you probably got tired of seeing these ads yourselves. But we're going to be diligent and working ahead to make sure we make barriers disappear to the degree they happen. I've been open with people to say I'm confident we'll continue to get sued, but we'll overcome those barriers. Because this bridge is a huge project. It is a project that we need your help to build. And it is a project we will build. But that, again, is not just a physical structure. As this bridge progresses, I'm going to keep on seeing jobs being created. Short-term jobs, but a bright future, because the second main goal I had as running for governor of Michigan, in addition to more and better jobs, was a future for our kids. And I'm quite confident that this bridge project is that significant. This is a project just not for the short term, but for the long term. And I am quite confident that this new bridge will end up being the largest, busiest trade crossing between our 2 countries, potentially for the next 100 years. There's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for good commerce, for good enterprise, for good business. And if anything, it helps reinforce my very first point to you, is to say, this is not about a transaction. That bridge, to me, represents a relationship that's been strong for well over 100 years. We just celebrated 1812 recently in terms of Fleet Week in Detroit and Windsor. It represents an opportunity, though, to reinforce and strengthen a relationship, a partnership, that I think is only going to become better and stronger because of the adversities and the issues we had to get to this point of building this bridge. We will continue to invest, to do more, to build a tighter, better partnership with Canada. And I hope you'll find it in your best interest and in your heart to continue the process of helping us. You've been so generous already with your funds and dollars, but also in terms of helping teach us. Your leadership in P3 is truly to be admired, and I look forward to learning more. So thank you so much. See if the first question is, what was my favorite bridge ad?
We're going to share a microphone, I think.
Oh, great.
It doesn't get any better than that, does it? So my first question,
That's partnership.
even before I look at the questions that have come up, my first question is, so you talked about celebrating the War of 1812. Who did you think won that war, the Americans or the Canadians?
Well, the interesting part about that is I think it was truly unique to say we're actually celebrating fighting a war. And if you looked at it, I actually did my history, and I will be open with you as we got whooped pretty bad in Detroit and Mackinac Island. So I'm happy you guys forgot all the details and we're just celebrating.
I think that kind of honesty will get you a long way. Great. So I encourage everyone in the room to ask a question, which will keep us here for the better part of the week. But you can do that through your apps, and as you know from the first couple of sessions, it's easy to do, and it's an effective way to get some questions up to the governor. So I'll give you a moment to do that, and maybe in the meantime, Governor, if I could ask you just one question. You talked a little bit about the importance of the bridge in terms of its impact on the economy in Michigan. Could you talk a bit more about that, and more specifically maybe what you think is the impact of the bridge on the broader U.S. economy? Because we often think about the border as being sort of maybe a province and a state, but in fact that border crossing really does have a tremendous impact right across the country.
Yeah, it has a huge impact. And if you think about it, it's more than our two countries, it's Mexico also. If you look at the whole NAFTA corridor, this is the prime corridor. This is the connection, the link between Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And right now, we have a system that doesn't work well. We have an 80-year-old bridge and a whole lot of traffic lights in Windsor. And just think about it in the simplest sense. Now you have it so it goes highway to highway in terms of direct connect. It's a fabulous opportunity, and it's only an opportunity to grow. And to make it more tangible for you, because this is the way I visualize it every day that's already happening, is if you happen to come to Detroit, and you go around the area where the Ambassador Bridge is, and you look on, not on the freeways, but on the access drives surrounding all the freeways, is you'll see semi-trucks lined up, bumper to bumper. And they're lined up quite often for hours. And they're lined up to cross the bridge, the Ambassador Bridge. And how much better off would we all be in terms of competing in a global economy with other parts of the world if those trucks were rolling along at highway speeds? So I make it very tangible in that degree, and that's happening today. One proud thing is I can tell you bridge traffic this year in terms of trade between the U.S. or Michigan and Canada has gone up over 5%. It's probably one of the robust percentages you're finding anywhere in the economy in North America, is to see the amount of traffic trying to go up and potentially constrain. Let's get the constraint off, and let's just have a whole lot more traffic going.
Thank you very much. I know it was also a bit challenging for you to move ahead with this initiative, even in your own legislature. I'm wondering if there are any lessons there for politicians on both sides of the border in terms of how to move challenging, ambitious initiatives through a political process in a way that really ends up to truly be a win-win.
Yeah, well, one of the things I can say when I look at this was probably the most troubling single incident of one special interest trying to use money to prevent what's in the best interest of the citizens of a jurisdiction that I've ever seen. And the amount of money you're talking about for the proposal alone was $35 to $40 million. Prior to that, approximately $5 to $10 million was spent running ads, largely portraying me as an evil person. I used to go home seeing what new evil I had done in the world when I turned on my television. And then there's been a lot of dollars in litigation and other costs. And so what I would say in terms of working with the legislators, and one of the things is they tried to portray this as a negative, is I didn't have to go to the Michigan legislature to do this. And I originally did that because I was following my predecessor, who was trying to do the traditional process of following the normal legislative process. But it's because of the generous Canadian offer. When I really analyzed it, it's like, since we're not actually putting money up for the bridge, I don't need to go to the Michigan legislature. So my view is I never went around them. I simply did what I was empowered to do, is to say I can do an agreement, as provided for in the Michigan Constitution, to do an agreement with Canada. Since it involves no Michigan taxpayer dollars, we could move ahead and get it done. So that was the great circumstances all coming together to say there's this confluence of events that are not normal in any means. And I want to thank your Consul General from Detroit, Roy Norton, for his fabulous work. He did a great job essentially on the campaign trail with me, which is very atypical for diplomats to do, helping get word out to Michigan citizens. I will share one comment that he shared this, and most of the things that got a great rousing response from Michiganders is he was kind enough to mention that the government of Canada traditionally does not have a practice of providing infrastructure for developed countries. To illustrate how truly unique this is, and it was just a fabulous partnership. So thank you, Roy, for your hard work in making all this happen.
And I know it might be a little bit early in the game, but is Michigan giving some thought yet to the kinds of P3 models it may want to consider to enable the bridge to go ahead? So how the impact, I guess, that would be on in Michigan in terms of your approach to this as a P3 project?
Yeah, what I would say is this is an international partnership. So the model's already defined in our agreement. It's largely done. It's the Canadian model because you guys know what you're doing, and we're still learning. So as a practical matter, it was really a negotiated model between us, but that's where we set up an international authority with 3 members on each side. But that international authority actually has a fairly limited purview. There is a crossing authority that will be managed largely from the Canadian side to say it will be your model. We're the comeback state in the United States today. We were at the bottom for a decade. But we are the comeback state in the United States today, and we're going to keep that up by being a customer service government. We don't create the jobs you do. Our role is simply to help you create an environment for success.
I know Ambassador Michael Wilson has a question he'd like to ask.
Governor, we're going to have a new bridge. It's also important that the goods move back and forth across that bridge as efficiently as possible. I wonder for people here, could you comment on how things are going to improve the use of technology, the use of the improved infrastructure in terms of making it a more efficient crossing rather than a bottleneck for trucks and other vehicles coming across?
Yeah, the ambassador asked, how are we going to make it a more efficient crossing? Just not another crossing, but how do we leverage technology and do those innovative ideas? And I'm all fired up for that. Again, I'm a techie, and I've already, one of the spots I'm really looking at is how we work with Border Patrol and immigrations and customs on working through that process, because that tends to still be one of the major bottleneck points. That is not a state authority, that's a national government authority. But I've already had discussions going back over a year or more ago with our Homeland Security Department, for example, to say, can we start looking at doing calculations of crossing times, figuring out where the bottlenecks are in particular crossing times. Is it going through Customs, Border Patrol, the actual crossing, backlogs, all those kind of questions? And then can we leverage infrastructure within our state to figure out, are there broadcast points, either using radio, other technology methods, to put that information out to say someone why they're still in the state of Indiana, coming in their truck, to actually let them know the best answer long-term, is it going to be the new international trade crossing, the Ambassador Bridge, or the Blue Water Bridge, and let them know what those choices are and what the bottlenecks are for each time period long before they even get there, and give them real-time updates as they approach. That's one of the most fabulous things we can do, is provide that environment for success. And what I'd love to see is, instead of us doing it one-off, shouldn't we find an answer for all our border crossings? This is something where I don't want to look at just for the NHTSA, but can we do that again? I want to even help the Ambassador Bridge people get people across the bridge better. I don't take it personally, all this stuff. I'm here to service all of us. How do we do it with Blue Water? So how do we come up with a method that could work well on the Canadian and U.S. side, openly share the technology and say, can we give better information on crossing times, finding out where those barriers are and broadcasting that as early as possible, and actually allowing people to make selections in real time? Market making. There's some market makers here, aren't there? Got a few finance people and stuff that could help me figure out that model.
I think actually that's a great answer that applies to right across all the border crossings between Canada and the United States. I have another interesting question here. Someone from the audience wants to know what your best guess is for the timing of the bridge.
Well, there are some preliminary timelines. Again, we're hoping to get our presidential permit, which is our key gating item now, in the next few months, and that will really move us along. But I would say it's going to be a couple of years before we probably get requests for quotation out, but you're looking at 2013-14, and the project could go as far out as anywhere to 2018, 19, and 20 before it's finally open for traffic. But again, that's where I view it as is the sooner we can work on this, the faster I want to get going. I view it as the sooner we can open this bridge, the sooner we're creating more and better jobs. So I have urgency to this. I'm not a normal government person, and I don't have that attitude. It's like we work in dog years in our administration. And to give you the quick story on that, what do I mean by that? Is when I took office, I said we had 4 years worth of work to get done in the first 6 months because we had to catch up. And I said, we got more than 6 months worth of work. So I stepped back and looked at our administration and said, what's the best analogy I got to say we got to keep doing this beyond 6 months? So I'm not a good analogy person. The best I could do was dog years, 7 years to 1. So we actually have people in our administration have dog year shirts even. So we're fired up. We want to get this going. Let's build this bridge.
It's a great way to finish, actually. Our time is just about run out. Do you have a closing statement, or was that it? Sorry.
No, all I would say is, again, I really appreciate the invitation. I want to thank the council for inviting me because this is about the dialogue, and I hope to come back to Canada on a much more frequent basis. We're going to have lots of people working both directions because, again, this is what I would say, and I hope you can see what I mean when I say this, is too often in history and in life, we take our neighbors for granted too much. We get too caught up in seeing some bright, shiny thing or some other person, some other object to say, hey, that's the future. And if you step back and think about it, the best long-term answer in a world that's going to change more and faster is the person that's been next to you the whole time that you've been very successful with. So I hope to build on this relationship, and that's why I appreciate this venue, and I'm ready to keep going, and if anything, you can see we're willing to go faster with our best partner possible, which is you. So thank you.
I'm going to ask Bob Park, who many of you know as the president of Acciona Canada, to come up and thank the governor. And I think probably you'll feel pretty good, Bob, because I think he gave you every opportunity to convince yourself that there'll be business for you guys in Michigan.
I think there's a bridge going to be built. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the council, I would like to thank Governor Snyder for taking the time out of what I'm sure is an extremely busy schedule to join us today and for your willingness to take questions from the floor afterwards. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing much more of Governor Snyder in the future as Canada and the province of Ontario, together with the USA and the state of Michigan, move forward to delivering the new bridge at Detroit. I'm sure it will be one of the iconic projects in North America in a few years' time. One of the most important aspects of a P3 project is political commitment and support from the highest level. And I think it's gratifying to all the people in this room to hear that support is there very firmly in place through yourself, Governor. It was also very gratifying to hear of your very strong commitment to the partnership between Ontario and Michigan. I think that was remarks which will be very welcome to this audience. So on behalf of the council, I would like to make a small presentation to the governor to thank him for his time and for his visit. This is a little bit different from the normal presentations that you see in these occasions. And on behalf of the governor, at the request of the governor, the Canadian Council is making a donation to Habitat for Humanity. So, Governor, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Very kind. Thank you very much. Thank you.